And we are live just like something insert joke here. Welcome everybody to the Crafty Boys. We are a bunch of dudes that drink beer and talk about it, and then we talk about whatever the hell else we decide to talk about because we don't plan anything because we're human beings and we require something to do for recreation. And if that includes streaming our stupid faces onto the internet, why the hell not? Hey boys.
Just like that guy said last week. What did he say?
Hang on, I took notes. I actually have those. I took notes.
Like, what the hell is this? You guys look like a bunch of guys that's sitting around in a bar who hate their wives.
Who hate our we hated our wives and oh crap, I just suddenly switched windows. Sorry everybody. Basically we hate everything about life is sort of what he was trying to imply. We looked like we looked like a bunch of people, dudes who actually, you know what? That chat is probably still on Twitch. I think. Let me look. I'll tell you in a second. Whatever. I gotta find my notes.
Yeah. Okay. Here. In the meantime, so during the pandemic, we have all been drinking different beers. Now, Dave and I live in the same city, so we've been able to get the same beers. This is going to be the first show in like 3 months where at least 3 of us have the same beer. Now, Locke being in Toronto is going to get a
drum and bass music at this end.
So he's going to get a bit of a pass. So, but I believe Shane, Dave, and myself, we all have the same beer for the first time in months. So this is kind of exciting. It's like a milestone.
It is a milestone. I mean, I've totally lost track of what bloody episode we're on or anything, but I'll sort it out later.
Well, 3 of you.
I'm sure this is like episode like 500. I'm sure this is episode like 573 or something.
Oh, I'm sure. It's really, it's like, no, of course. Like, what else would we actually do with our lives other than, well, you know,
right.
do stuff.
Shall we introduce the beer? While Dave, I can see Dave here. He's diligently peeling off the wax off of his bottle.
This holy shit.
I've already gotten mine off.
Lousy bastard.
So this beer was released just a little bit before the pandemic, and I had bought it with the intention of us doing it on the show, and then all hell broke loose. But anyway, it's from Driftwood. It is called Eccentricity Wheat Wine, which I thought looked kind of interesting.
I'm very curious about this beer. I mean, it is, to me, it is just something that speaks volumes as to what the beer industry is doing, because, you know, they're always trying to do crazy new things. Did yours come with the blue teal wax?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. Yeah. This is what's left of it here.
I'm trying to figure out how to open this thing here, and
I love this label. I think this is one of my favorite labels.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Read it out. Let's hear it.
Okay, so on the side here it says a quirky but oddly intriguing intersection of wheat, rye, and amburana spirals. I don't know what that is. This potent libation knows it is right and will hide in the back of your cellar until it is good and ready. So that kind of leads me to believe that this is cellarable. It doesn't have a year on it, so like a barley wine would.
I can't open it. I can't get into the beer. Oh my god, are you kidding me?
It smells like really good.
I need help. Peanut Gallery. I can't get into the beer. I've been defeated by wax.
It smells like a rye, like a beer that has been aged in rye barrels or something like that.
Can you assist? Pretty please.
Now this is a pretty hefty beer. It's a party in a bottle. comes in at 11.4%, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's
11.4.
Yes, we're gonna be dead by the end.
I just have
So
to.
that's what it looks like in my
make a delivery
glass.
here. I'll be back shortly.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's what it looks like in the glass. I got lots of bubbles happening, but no head. The head is pretty much gone. I'll hold it up there for Locke so he can see.
Here you
Pretty
are.
good. Yeah, no. I like that.
Oh, thank you. If this is the wine, that's right. Allison just said, "Hey, drink this out of a wine glass."
Oh.
Okay, here's what mine looks like. It's pretty sexy. Oh, I like the smell.
Oh my goodness.
It kind of smells like a barley wine, just a touch. Not
kind
a lot,
of, yeah.
Little.
Oh my.
Hello, Julian from Quarry Bay on Nelson Island.
Oh, cool.
Julian, who's appeared on our show, is still in isolation on the west coast, the Sunshine Coast.
Nice. So this, I'm if I'm going to compare this to anything, and I really have nothing to compare it with, I'm going to compare it to say a barley wine, but it's got a little less of a bite to it. You know that sometimes the barley wines, especially like say what's the one that Driftwood puts out?
The Hammer's Thor.
No. That's Central City.
Or Thor's Hammer. Yeah.
Isn't that Old Cellar Dweller?
Cellar Dweller.
Old
right,
Cellar
yeah,
Dweller.
Thank you.
So Old Cellar Dweller, when you first if you take an Old Cellar Dweller right off the shelf and you haven't aged it and you open it up, yeah, and it's pretty. It's got like a bit of a hoppy kind of flavor to it. That's what this tastes like, just without the hoppy flavor.
Right. Okay.
I find this kind of has a bit of a kick to it.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. You can taste the rye in it. But it's not overpowering either. You know, I would say if people find barley wines too strong, this would be a good alternative. This would be sort of like your midway point between a regular beer and a barley wine.
Yeah, I can see that.
What are you guys thinking of this, Shane and Dave?
Dave, go first because I'm very curious as to what you think.
I like it. It's probably got a little more kick to it than I would like. I would be super interested to see what this would be like in a couple of years. I think that's what we did with Old Cellar Dweller, right? A couple of years.
Yes, we did. We did. Yeah.
Because that is most definitely, if it's not, my top, it's definitely top 5. The Old Cellar Dweller. That was just amazing. This one, I'm finding, I don't know about you guys, but I find I literally have to sip this thing. Like, you're not going to just put this thing back at a party. That's not what you do with this one.
No, definitely not.
Or at least I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't. If I tried to do that, I wouldn't be standing.
It's a problem. I could die from doing this one. It's just awful. I mean, I understand you totally, because I always think of that as barley wine. Like, it's generally I have barley wine at the holidays, so I'm not too concerned. But ever since we started doing the wonders of the Advent calendar, I know that in December my liver is like, what are you doing, and why are we doing this, and what is wrong with you? So I'm able to enjoy the other beer more, because when the barley wines come out, that's when you get kicked into overdrive in your brain and your body melts away and drains down the nearest drain. Because the barley wines are so incredibly, not just the alcohol content, but I'm talking about the actual taste. Like that barreling of that beer is just, it's so incredibly pungent. It's so incredibly just hardcore in your mouth. Um, that sometimes you're just not in the mood. You kind of want to let them sit for a while, and you have some, and then you cork it, throw it in the fridge for a few more days, and you have a bit more. This one has something similar to that. It's definitely got that wine kind of lacing stuff that's going on, like, or the actual, whatever that's called, the alcohol running down the glass. But there's nothing about this that's wrong, but it's like drinking a barley wine that just has a much, much lighter flavor, and I kind of like that. Nothing against the usual barley wines we've had, but this one I like it a lot more. But you're right, Dave. It's not something I'm going to pound back at a party and then reach for the next one, because my entire internal army of internal organs would like open up my gut and walk out and leave for a while. Like, look, if you're doing that, we're out. We're gonna go. We got other stuff to do. So
I would be really interested to have one of these side by side with one that's been aged 2 years. In fact, I think I may go buy another one and just let it sit for a couple of years. I'll forget about it and then pull it out. I kind of hope they make this every year and buy a bottle in a couple of years and put the two side by side and try them out.
by the way, this is I found the quotes that we were looking for, the commentary from the show last week. It's just like a bar full of middle-aged alcoholic white guys with a Tim Hortons smashed into it. I could almost smell the shame, the self-loathing, and the chicken noodle soup.
Okay, you skipped that part last week.
Sorry,
Yeah.
if he's smelling shame and loathing, I don't think those go digital.
And don't diss the chicken noodle soup.
Anyway, but yeah, so basically, by the way, I didn't notice this, but last week, Locke, I was supposed to ask you about your wife. So, how's your wife doing?
Is still unmarried.
Ah, really? You don't have one? Oh, that's terrible. There you go. So that answers the question. Should the guy's account is called "I'm completely full of bullshit," so I suspect he won't come back ever.
On with something interesting. So
it.
this.
Yes, please. Is that a beer by Nickelback? Oh my god, I thought it said Nickelback.
No. Yeah, easy mistake to make. No. Which is Fario.
Well said.
Did you hear that Kenny wants? It's a great idea.
Sorry, what? You're totally Cyloned out. I have no idea what you said.
I have no idea what you
It
said.
sounds like an audition to like
Anyway,
Planet of the Apes.
IPA. It has oats in it.
We have no idea what you said, Locke. Your connection just completely just like drowned out in Cyloning noises. And it began to sound like there were actually, at one point I thought you were trying out for the next Planet of the Apes movie. So you've got a beer called
That's awesome.
Zap?
Snap. From Nickelbrook.
From Nickelbrook, not Nickelback.
Yes, Nickelbrook from Rio. I actually like that. It's got a lychee nut flavor.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Lychee.
Is it a lighter? Is it
I
kind of a
can
lighter
get
thing,
behind
or
that.
is it? It's like a lighter
it's
IPA, or?
five. Yeah, it's 5.5. I would say it's got more in common with those citrusy Northeast styles than you do with the Pine Hoppy West.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm kind of where. So sorry, you said they're in Montreal.
No, the Burlington, Ontario.
Ah, okay. Definitely not Montreal.
Lot's
Definitely not.
connection seems to be much better now.
My
Good job.
connection is garbage tonight, isn't it?
Well, it's much better right now. So
Yeah. Well, anyway, I can't do much about it, but yeah, there we have a bit of an ingredients list. See if we can actually focus
Nice.
in on that. I don't know if we're focusing on that very well, but yeah, I've got to say this is it's sufficiently sour that it's a sipping drink,
Right.
but it's got all the right elements of the sort of thing that you could do on a hot day. This could be a refreshing if you probably had water every 3.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Okay.
impressed.
Yeah,
So
Now,
no, I'm liking it.
we can get some Nickelbrook stuff out this way.
really,
Yes, in fact, they were at Beer Fest this past year.
Cool.
So maybe I'll keep an eye out for that.
Let's do a project. If you're seeing some Nickelbrook you want to try, let's try to do across Canada, all with the same drink.
Okay.
cool.
All
I'm
right.
good for that.
Nice.
I really want to know if the Great Canadian Beer Fest or Victoria Beer Week are even going to happen.
Well, okay, so the pandemic happened during the middle of Victoria Beer Week. It was right in the middle of it when they had to cancel the rest of it. So, because Victoria Beer Week is in March. Beer Fest has not been officially canceled. I can't see it happening. There is a little bit of hope for it in the Calgary Beer Fest. I can't remember what it was called. Was scheduled to be a few weeks ago, and they didn't cancel it. They postponed it to the 3rd week of September. So if the Calgary Beer Fest, if they think it can reasonably happen in September, then there's hope for the Great Canadian Beer Fest in Victoria, the first weekend or the second weekend of September. But I don't know. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I mean this kind of leads into a conversation that I've been having for the past couple of days with a variety of different people about what to do about COVID at the moment. And the thing that I'm seeing in the news a bit, but more in people's behavior, is that because the sun is out and the birds are flapping around doing whatever birds do, the people seem to think it's over, and that's my impression. And businesses
And they would be wrong.
Well, that's the thing is that the behavior, like hearing of different friends of mine all over the place being told by their employers that they basically have to come back to work now to their offices, but nothing for how to protect their employees really is being done. I mean, some companies are, but definitely some are not. And it's very interesting that there seems to be this pressure on employees to return to work regardless of what safety measures are done or not. And a couple of people that I know are actually saying they're not going back. No, I don't care what you tell me to do. I'm not coming back until these 10 things are done, which you're supposed to be doing already. And if you're not going to do them, then I'm not coming. I'm working fine from home, thanks very much, and I'm not coming back to the office right now. And it's interesting to me that these large companies like Twitter and Google and Microsoft and Shopify are all basically saying, no, we're not coming back until maybe next January, February. Everyone's staying home. Amazon told their employees basically to come and grab stuff. Hey, if you guys have equipment that you need from the office, just come get it. And they, had an orderly kind of way of doing that. for people at the office level. I can't speak for the people in the distribution centers, but it's shocking to me that it's because people are two things. They're frustrated, they're bored, they're scared, they are either running out of money or not. Their employee, they've been laid off or whatever. It's interesting that the sort of overall from all of that kind of pressure is like, fuck it, done, and I think that's the most terrifying thing. And now that we have all the protests going on that we've talked about for the past couple of weeks, and people actively not protecting themselves, people that are actively pulling on the masks of others and pulling them off their heads, or police doing that to protesters, all these kinds of things going on. And all of the stuff that we've been dealing with and having to cope through could literally go out the window where, I mean, what is it? I think I just saw in the news today, like 18 different states in the US are having spikes now, like huge ones that are like up to 50% of what their top spike was and still going up. And it's like, how stupid do we all have to be to allow this to happen? And I don't get it. And sure, I know people are frustrated. Yes, I know. So am I. I don't want to stay home every fucking day and not. I mean, I'm lucky because I work from home anyway. But
it would be different down in the States if it wasn't an election year.
Yeah, totally. That's terrifying.
It is terrifying. I mean, on the one hand, we do need to build up a herd immunity. Spread does need to happen. This is a necessity. We have to move past this at some point. Either that's through a vaccine, which may never be developed, or we do it through herd immunity. And the sooner we develop a herd immunity, the better off we're going to be. Mm-hmm. The other thing is I think people are expecting things to go back to normal. And here's the thing. Things are never, ever going to go back to normal. There's going to be a new normal now. From here on out.
What in the last 100 years would you describe as normal?
Well, exactly. The world is all about change, right? You have to accept change. You got to be able to roll with the punches. You got to be able to adapt. And people aren't prepared to adapt because things have been kind of stagnant for, say, the past 20, 25 years, 30, 40 years, as far as like workplace goes. But now we've been forced into figuring out ways to work from home or to do things differently. And that is going to be the new normal. You're not going to be going to the grocery store every single day to pick up something that you forgot 3 days ago or whatever. You're going to go do one grocery shop once a week, and that's it. You're not going to go back to the grocery store again until the next week. They're going to work out some way to make that happen. You're going to be able to work from home. You're not going to see your friends as often. You're going to live in the virtual space. This is the new normal eventually.
I mean, the whole thing with schools opening as well, because they can, I guess, fascinates me, where you have this belief that you can actually imagine for a second trying to tell a 6-year-old that they have to stay away from other kids, that they have to remain X number of whatevers. Now, if it was one child, sure. 2, okay, maybe. A classroom full? And you're relying on a teacher who's in theory supposed to be staying away from them to a certain distance are going to be able to manage that? Like, I don't know. I understand there's
Well-
stresses for childcare and all these kinds of things, but I mean, granted, some
Well-
parents are just not doing it, but still.
And it's not school is back, but it's not full classes
Mm.
or anything like that.
True.
It's, I mean, my kids had the option of going back. They didn't go back. It was voluntary. There was 1 day a week that they would be able to go back. So what they've done is they've split up a class into 20%, 20%, 20%, and you know, like 1/5 goes one day, second fifth goes the next day, third fifth goes on the Wednesday, but so on and so forth.
Mhm.
We didn't really see any point in that going to school 1 day a week, so we
Yeah.
decided to keep him home, and he can continue doing his stuff online, which he seemed to be doing marginally well. What I'm concerned about is next year. I mean, I think the kids are kind of getting a bit of a pass the rest of this year. You know, basically with everything that's going on, they've been given about 2 hours of work a day.
Frankly, what they've had is an experience that is what education is meant to impart.
Yeah.
True. But then next year, and my middle son is going to be in grade 12 next year, so it's his graduation year. And I'm a little bit concerned about how that's going to work, because we're still going to be going through this next year. There's still going to be restrictions. There's still, you know, he's not going to be able to. We're not going to go back to normal by then.
Well, and this is the thing, right? Is that it just this attitude of people talking about how things will return to the way things were, I think is interesting because it shows a lack of knowledge and a lack of education, in my opinion. And and as I said, I understand that people are frustrated and they want things to hopefully become a little less not COVID-y. But the thing is that in if we get too lax now and we let things slide backwards, I mean, I was just looking at some stats about different things, and there are places right now that have gone back to the end of April in their growth numbers and the people who are infected and these kinds of things. And hopefully
Beijing.
Oh yeah, that's actually that
Beijing
was what got me
just
thinking
closed
about it.
down all their schools again because they got a spike.
And this is the thing, is that this stuff is not done, and as we're saying, but Beijing was really the hotbed initially, and it's become a hotbed again. Wuhan, all these kinds of areas, because they relaxed everything and people kind of started going about their lives, and then suddenly, there was a lull of about 3 weeks or so, or it seems, and then suddenly, boom, it just suddenly came back, and it's like, what the hell's going on? And the thing that I think we don't understand in our country specifically, and is that people that I know that are in the military were tapped, in March to say, hey, we might have to put the military on the streets to keep people at home. So report for duty on this day, should it happen. And the larger cities is pretty much where they would have to put those soldiers and whatnot. But that still could happen. Like that's not, if we act like dicks and completely forget that there's a problem going on and not practice good hygiene and whatnot, or stay away from people, then yeah, suddenly you're going to really be at home for a hell of a lot longer, and there'll be dudes driving up and down the roads in military vehicles saying, you come outside and we'll tase your ass and throw you in the jail, and you won't come out till it's all over. And do you really want
and that's
that?
what was happening in the Philippines. Actually, it was worse. In the Philippines, a couple of months ago, they were actually, if you were caught outside of your house, the military was shooting people.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Duarte's a gem, isn't he?
Why am I laughing?
Actually, I heard about a story in the Philippines of some 10-year-old kid was on the balcony of his home. Like, so he was at home, he was on the balcony outside, military shot him. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, it could be.
That's what I heard.
The amount of fake news that's out there right now. Like
Yeah,
the Reuters fact check is great for seeing some of the weirder ones.
Locke is right. There's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of false stuff. And I'm not talking like the Onion and Beaverton and stuff like that. I'm talking about just people making shit up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, the Russians evidently have a pretty, they like stirring the pot. It's not like this is a new practice of theirs. Like I don't know what we do know is that 20 Indian soldiers died in an altercation with China over a road which I gather relates to Tibetan sovereignty.
Oh.
Sorry, what?
Do you know about the 20 soldiers that died in the altercation between India and China over the last?
I've not heard a thing about this.
Yeah, this is worth paying attention to. I mean, I hope that doesn't escalate a whole fuck of a lot, but on the other hand, if Tibetan sovereignty is the stakes, there's a lot of people sympathetic to that idea. I don't know. That's a dizzying thought as to what a conflict between India and China might look like just now.
Could this be sort of like, I don't want to, maybe I don't want to mention this. Okay, forget it. Go on, talk.
All I'm saying is the world's mighty busy right now doing itself trouble.
Well, what I'm saying is, could we be like on the precipice of World War III?
People have been talking about it. Now, you know that Rumsfeld, being the cunt that he is, already declared World War IV, right?
What?
What? When?
This was back in the W years. He had this whole fucking theory about how the Cold War was World War III, and really the war on terror was World War IV. But I think feel free to ignore that idiot.
Okay, is he still relevant today, Rumsfeld?
I don't know. Suddenly,
like, shouldn't he be like in a nursing home or something, like having his diaper changed by now or something?
Well, yeah. I given the state of the Statesians, the United Statesians have themselves a mess of trouble from all quarters right now, it seems.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, what this book that was just released, you've heard about it?
Yes, I did hear about that book that was just released. No, tell me. What the hell is in this beer? Holy shit.
Yeah. No, the
11.4%.
asshole that they appointed to the UN. In the Bush years. What's his name? Sorry, this was not my first, so I am losing the thread a little here. But what was his name?
Colin Powell?
No. Man, he was a real dickhead.
Condoleezza Rice?
No. The guy with the mustache.
Oh, him. No,
it's more mustachy than mine, but yeah.
I can picture his face. I don't know who he is though.
Yeah. He was a lawyer. I know who you're talking about, Locke, but the name
anyway, he's just he's just released a book about his experiences dealing with Trump, in which he accuses Trump.
Hang on. Yeah, sorry, keep going.
He accuses Trump of asking Z to interfere in the U.S. election to get him elected. President Z of China, yeah.
John Bolton.
Bolton, that's what I'm looking for. There we go.
Yeah, the book is called The Room Where It Happened. And basically, yeah, he says that he was apparently Trump asked China for assistance to get him elected.
Huh.
Yeah, unprecedented times, you would think.
So I have to ask you, Locke, and maybe this is sensitive. Are you happy to be out of the United States now?
I am joyous to be out of the United States right now. I'm glad I had the opportunity to see it the way I did, because it's not what I grew up believing the United States was. I'm a bit weird in that having lived within 100 miles of the U.S. border for most of my life, I've been there less than I've been to Europe. I've been there. When I moved there, I'd been there slightly more than I'd been to Asia, which is almost not at all. So,
yeah.
So when I went there, I had this idea of an America that, frankly, is entirely a fabrication of cinema and television news and advertising. And what I found was something really weird. Like, every state is so totally eccentric from each other. They're more different from each other than European countries are. And you remember how European countries used to treat each other, right? So it's insane that they're as different as they are, and yet somehow it all sort of hangs together. But it's more racist than anything I've encountered anywhere in the world, not having been to, a good deal of it, but quite significantly, like, I've been to Turkey, and I didn't think Turkey was quite as bad that way. Like, now I ask a Kurd, and I think you'll find a different answer. But it's not about black and white, right? The fact that they've got it down, so everything down there is a binary. It's the snap decision between, like, so all judgments are based on essentially a Coke and Pepsi menu. Right. You got two options, pick one, and like, maybe if you were looking at a Soviet era Russia and the option was one option, two options looks like massive improvement on that. But is that where we are today? Like, are those sensible decision-making techniques? Snap one way or the other? Like, I don't know.
It's kind of freaky seeing this stuff. Now, this is interesting. I want to mention this. I heard this morning on the radio, but apparently Quaker, who owns the Aunt Jemima brand,
I read about this.
Yeah,
they are completely abandoning the brand. They're going to rebrand Aunt Jemima products into something else. They haven't said what, but they're going to drop the logo, the name, everything.
Wow.
Yeah, that's something I just don't care about, and I'm glad they're doing it. It doesn't make a difference to me. I think it is
either way.
It's one of those things where I could take it or leave it. It's definitely a product that has a questionable birth, and it's obviously born out of racism. But I'm glad they're doing it. More power to them.
I'm glad they're doing it too.
I think that they should do that to some other products that are not necessarily that friendly to being an inclusionary kind of thing. But really, I don't know. Even if they retired it outright and we never saw it again, I don't know. I can't even think of anything else. I mean, there's the syrup, of course, which is the famous thing. But does Aunt Jemima have a brand on other products? I don't even know.
On pancake mix.
Ah, of course. Right.
But I use Bisquick for making pancakes, so never done anything other than Bisquick for that. And I do buy the syrup, but I can easily buy another syrup.
The football team at my high school was called the Redskins. There were a couple of native guys on the team. They were like, "Yeah, Redskins, man, Redskins." So I don't know. I mean, is it sensitive? I don't know. It depends on who you ask.
I think it is.
But the other thing too is that this has been happening for a while. It's not just this product. I mean, this is just the latest product. It's an obvious target. But a ton of different sports teams have also had these conversations in the last few years anyway. The Redskins, the Cleveland Indians, all of these different sports.
Atlanta Braves.
They've had
the
these
Atlanta
conversations
Braves already. Has probably one of the most overt discriminatory activities in the games, where the fans actually they do this thing called the tomahawk chop, and they sing that whatever the Native American song thing, it's abysmal. And I'm saying this as a Toronto Blue Jays fan who played against the Atlanta Braves in 1992 in the World Series, and I hate the Atlanta Braves. So I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, is that there's all these different things. I mean, right, I just was reading about some people were taking shots at Disney again about Song of the South, which is a film that was out in the 60s, I think, or was it the 70s? I can't remember. Which has this song Zippity Doodah. And Disney a long time ago already said that was a bad idea, and we're sorry. It sucked. Sorry, it came out in 1946. What am I saying? The 60s. Good lord. And and they, the phrase that I've heard is they locked it in the vault, never to be seen again. They've never released it out to the. I think there was on one release on VHS back in the 80s, but other than that, it never came out. So yeah, I mean, it's a shameful thing where you have slaves running around talking about how awesome it is to be a slave. Well, no, it very much wasn't. And so they tucked it away and said, get lost. The reason I think it's getting attacked right now is that one of their rides, the log ride, has taken characters from that film that are not overtly racist, as far as I know. But they definitely are thinking of changing it. I don't know if they will, but they most likely will, I would think. But I don't know. There's a lot of these things going on, and it's, to me, it's fascinating to be alive right now, because we're getting to see I don't want to say downfall, but the final gasp of colonialism, and
I don't know that's true. I don't know that's true.
Locke, I'd actually be very interested to hear what you have to say about that.
I don't think that's I don't think that's the right way to look at the world, because truthfully, that last gasp of so-called colonialism happened a long time ago, like back right after the Second World War. We've been the Commonwealth ever since.
Yeah.
And the Commonwealth has proven itself in practice to be a highly inclusive organization, and one that has a great deal of respect for all of its members. I don't think the drum beating about anti-colonialism right now is appropriate. What I think it is trying to ride the coattails of what's going on in the United States, which is an absolutely correct response to grave injustice that's gone on since its inception. You might note that they founded themselves a mere 4 years after the Mansfield decision in London, which said that slavery was not respected under English law. Now, understand, they still teach law in the U.S. on the basis that it's English law imported into the U.S. So you can see where that would have been of interest to anybody who had slave plantations growing tobacco in say, Virginia, right?
Mhm.
So, you wonder why that revolution really happened. Well, they did practice chattel slavery a good 100 years later than everybody else. That's a notable feature. I think, I think there's a sense in which when something like this is going on, everybody wants to, sort of sing a bit of a mea culpa, together. And insofar as that's what the spirit is, I'm all for it. I mean, bad things have happened throughout history, but who right now is wringing their hands over the gravity of being made into a eunuch? If you were going to be a slave, would you rather they cut your balls and your dick off first or not? Right? Like, I think for me, the answer is pretty clear. I think I would probably not want them to cut my dick and balls off. Right? But is anybody wringing their hands over that right now? Is that on anybody's radar as a particular thing to grieve about? Well, no, because it had nothing to do with the Atlantic slave trade. But my point is, for everybody to get together and say, "Oh well, gee, this is we're all guilty." No, the United States is guilty. It's guilty of the things that it's guilty of, and it's been guilty of them very publicly. It's all recorded in their law books. It's recorded in their media. It's recorded by Disney. Now, is it smart to destroy those records? No, you need to preserve stuff like that so people learn something. The idea that you can get to a better place by destroying the past, I think, is so totally misguided as to be that proverbial person who repeats the past because they don't learn from it.
That's an argument a lot of people don't like, which I find very strange. That we have these phrases that we've heard all our lives about those who don't educate themselves about the past are doomed to repeat it in the future, and these kinds of things that we all sort of take to heart, and then you have individuals who are pissy about statues being ripped down. I don't really have a problem with statues being ripped down.
Me neither.
As long as you replace the statue with something more appropriate, yes, but you also acknowledge what was there before and why.
If you're going to rip the statue down, put it in a museum.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, right now they're throwing them into harbors and decapitating them and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, that there should be some context to why did people feel this was important to do, and replace it with a statue that either represents the events that took place there, or a statue that represents somebody more appropriate to the time period, all that kind of stuff. But also say, hey, this was what was here before, and this is why we think it's bad, and this is why we should remember it was here, and this is why we took it down. Those kinds of questions, or those kinds of statements, because I feel that statues are not going to let people forget history, but the reality is
the problem I have with statues is that they are not things that teach us history. They celebrate them. That's what a statue does. And that is why
some of those statues are history. They weren't
they're markers of history.
They were built 100 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago.
Okay, sure. Meanwhile, here in Victoria, there was this huge uproar over the statue of John A. Macdonald that was erected in 1984, I think. The early 1980s. And that people were saying, well, they're erasing history. Like, no, I'm sorry. Sir John A. Macdonald was from before 1984. People knew who he was before.
That's a fair example. I agree with what you're saying there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's fascinating in a lot of ways, but the thing that pops into my mind for some reason are the Georgia Guidestones. And have you guys heard of the Georgia Guidestones?
No.
No.
So the Georgia Guidestones are a like a mini Stonehenge, not a mini Stonehenge. Stonehenge is, but basically there's several stones that are made of granite that are sitting out in the middle of a field somewhere in Georgia, and they are, I gather, I think there's 8 or 12 or something of these stones, and they are basically they tell people how to rebuild society, but how to do it in the correct way, rather than, so that we don't repeat our current society, the problems of our society. So I'm surprised you guys haven't heard about these. I've heard of these for years. But
sorry, they come from where?
Sorry?
Where do they come from?
Well, that's the thing. They were erected, and no one knows who actually erected them, supposedly. It's kind of a mystery who built these things, but these are these large granite slabs that have instructions about how to rebuild society in 8 different languages. And
this sounds like something out of the Inquirer.
I thought it originally was. Sorry?
What were the languages?
The languages. Actually, let me Google this. Hang on.
Were these things constructed by the Bat Baby?
Yeah, here we go. The Georgia Guidestones, granite, erected in 1980 in Elbert County, Georgia, in the United States. A set of 10, I said 12, 10, inscribed on the structure, 8 modern languages, of a shorter message at the very top, in 4 ancient language scripts. So I'll tell you what they are. A message consisting of a set of 10 guidelines or principles is engraved on the Georgia Guidestones in 8 different languages, 1 language on each face of these 4 upright stones. Moving clockwise around the structure from due north, the languages are English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, traditional Chinese, and Russian.
I sense a plot for the next Indiana Jones movie.
And do you want to hear what these actually say right now? Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3, unite humanity with a living new language. 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8, balance personal rights with social duties. 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And 10, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. So yeah, they were originally put up in 1980, and the sign.
There's a lot of subjective stuff in it.
The let these Guidestones be an age of reason. So yeah.
So
very
okay.
Okay, Locke, go ahead.
Because the reason that popped into my mind about that is we were talking about China.
You were talking about the subjective stuff. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are there.
All right, let's hear it, Alan.
Oh well, there's a lot of subjective stuff in there, like a lot of talk about fairness and stuff like that. Fairness by whose measure? If you could go through some of them again, there was a lot of subjective stuff. Who decides what is fair? Who decides what is enlightenment?
Well, it's obvious. I mean, if you read them...
No, it's not obvious.
It's totally obvious. The United Federation of Planets. Duh.
And maybe if it was erected in 1980, that actually kind of makes sense.
Look, as a lawyer, I would suggest that fairness is a matter of law. It's not the same thing as justice. Justice is about disputes between equals of the same arms. Law is about making a society what we think is fair. Fair ultimately is in the eye of the beholder. So it's, I think, what it ultimately devolves in both political and legal language into a balancing test, which is you try to make it as good as you can and you shrug your shoulders about the rest.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I started thinking about it, because of what you guys were saying, is the few little articles that I was just skimming about the skirmish between India and China in the past couple of days. Everyone keeps saying that an all-out war between these two countries is unlikely, mainly because India has friends, and China doesn't have as many except for maybe Russia. And I kept thinking about all these things that seem to be going on in the world that people seem to ignore, at least in my mind anyway. But the annexation of Crimea, only 6 years ago or so, and that didn't seem to really bother too many people. I don't quite know why. I don't understand that whole situation. But essentially, Putin was like, mine, and the Crimea people were like, okay. But at the same time,
do they have oil?
Was that I don't know. This is the thing is I should
not.
probably do a bit of
What
research.
they have is a naval base with nukes.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think Sevastopol is the thing, but anyway, it's just the world didn't really bat an eye when that was happening, because now, granted, maybe the people of Crimea and the government of Crimea were like, we totally need some help. Come take us. We'll join together and whatnot. But I don't have a suspicion that is actually not what happened. I suspect that they couldn't defend themselves, obviously. So, and it happened very quickly. Like, we're talking like a month and a half, where this all happened, and then it was done. And then a year later, in 2015, the people were like, "Yep, we're fully integrated now. Thanks so much. Bye bye." And that was kind of it. And the thing that I think is going to be happening with China specifically. I mean, we're seeing it in Hong Kong already, and next on the chopping block is Taiwan, and I think Taiwan will actually go to war with China, because they've built up somewhat of a military to defend themselves.
Taiwan being the Republic of China.
Sorry.
Taiwan being the Republic of China.
Right, exactly. The former government dictator many years ago. Yeah.
The dispute isn't necessarily one that, and it would be fascinating to see if they could reassert. I mean, I think the odds against very unlikely, but crazier things have happened.
Yeah,
hard to know how much hard to know what they actually have on the continent, right? Because how would they express it? Would you hear them if how would you hear them?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't. I don't think I would.
I want to hear what Dave thinks about all
this. Dave's asleep. Dave, tell us your idea about the world of politics.
I'm still here. Oh, world of politics. Yeah. That's a lot of crazy shit.
Well said, sir. I concur.
Well said, Dave. Well said.
Yeah.
Thanks for the in-depth report.
And to be honest, there's so much more I want to talk about this, but we have been streaming for an hour, so it is time for Dave to go to bed. It is time for Locke to go to bed. But we'll pick it up next week.
You kind of sound like the friendly giant there.
Who?
It's time for this to go to
Hang
bed.
on.
Time for this guy to go to bed. Here's a
Hang on.
chair for the big guy to rock. And
All right, children, look up, look away. Let's strangle the crap out of Rusty. I don't know what that was from. I think it was SCTV, but there was this Friendly Giant parody thing where they had the Friendly Giant like moving the chairs around, setting them up by the little fireplace, and then they look way up, and then let's call Rusty, and then Rusty comes out, and then there's some brief altercation, and then the Friendly Giant like throttles Rusty to death, and then Jerome the giraffe, comes through the window. He's like, "What's going on? I can't believe you've just killed Rusty." He's like, "Ah, suck it, buddy!" And he pulls a guillotine down and it chops the giraffe's head off. I don't know what that was from. I've tried to find it on YouTube.
I'm a little bit shocked about the fact that Rusty, the chicken, was kept in a bag of. Like, what kind of a sick asshole?
Oh my god, it was so funny. I mean, I love that show, but yeah, I don't know where this parody was from. I'm pretty sure it was SCTV or some comedy group. But holy cow, it was amazing. When I saw it, I think I laughed for days. But anyway, yes. Thank you all for watching. There's been a few people in the thing. I also had to kick some people from the chat because apparently they're not very nice. And but that's okay. So we'll all see you next week, of course, and we'll hopefully thumbs up and fingers crossed that we'll actually have the same beer all around again, with the exception of Luck because he's so far away. But that's okay. Do all the things with the social media stuff. Tell people about what we're doing here because we're doing it all for